All right, let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
It's all over the place, and perhaps Canelo shouldn't be getting so much headlines for what he's getting headlines for. It's a damning indictment on the sport of boxing, where the politics play out like a soap opera. And I can't even lie, my channel does reflect that. And I think, when I started the channel, I was just talking about what fights I wanted to see and boxing and going old school, some of the great fights and the great events. So I don't know if it was a bait and switch by the PBC. They offered up Charlo. Nobody seems to know what the other two opponents were in the free fight deal. Were there issues with Charlo that the PBC didn't believe he was worth the 35 million guarantee? They could drop it to maybe 20. Canelo wasn't with that. Breach of contract looked a distinct possibility, and a mutual split was the decision. They're saying now Canelo would prefer to fight Berlanga, the Puerto Rican, at Dazn, and then Jaime. Dazn want him to fight Jaime first, and then Edgar Berlanga. I've noticed Bob Arum hasn't made a pitch to get Canelo because it's a bit of a headache, isn't it? It's a bit of a headache. They're talking about Terence Crawford may hang around at the PBC for a Tim Tszyu fight, but when's that going to be? Tim is going to fight Thurman. A potential Crawford fight won't happen until way down the year, and Crawford would have been inactive for way over a year. Surely that can't be a good situation for Terence Crawford. Looks like Deontay Wilder is on that shake money right now. He's not going to be included on the schedule. Luis Ortiz has hopped over to Top Rank to fight Efe Ajagba, and his last fight was in Colombia. Andy Ruiz, milk carton. How do the PBC go about this Amazon Prime schedule without no heavyweight players and heavyweight fights? I mean, Frank Sanchez, where is he fighting Caballero? Is it on the PBC, or is it going to be on a Saudi card? There's a lot of boxing fans who thought it was normal for a welterweight like Floyd to flagship the sport when it's an anomaly. And I'm not saying all American boxing fans, obviously not, but these guys probably hadn't been following boxing like that and jumped on the bandwagon with Floyd. But it's, normal service resumed. The heavyweights are back on top, flagship in the sport like they always have done since the inception of Queensberry Rules Boxing. And, you've got DAZN and the Sheikh putting on the Day of Reckoning for £20 over here. I believe it was $40 in America. Way cheaper than what Al Heyman has been serving up with them mediocre pay-per-views for $60 and $80 and all types of numbers like that. Next week, you get Joshua and Ngannou, Parker versus Zhang. Ray Vargas, another departed PBC fighter. He takes on Nick Bull for the featherweight title on there. It's a good fight. Karbonov and Madrimov fight for the vacant WBO super welterweight title. Mark Chamberlain versus Gavin Gwynn at 130 for the British title. Mark Chamberlain, a huge puncher. Great domestic matchup there. Strong undercard. And this is what we're getting from Saudi Arabia. This is what we're getting.
What's going on, Coach?
What's happening?
I can't see you. We don't talk to no guy.
Everybody talking about that Frank Martin stuff. I see.
Yeah.
Ain't happening.
Al Heyman ain't dead yet.
Unless something changed, but he sit there and say, no, that's not happening.
I was watching a recent video with Dan Raphael. I'm my own man. I don't do this. I'm independent. Yeah. You're putting out the PBC schedule. You're supposed to be a credible source. Where did you get it from? Because Calvin is saying the Frank Martin fight is not happening. Tank doesn't want to do certain things he's been asked to do. He didn't elaborate on that. But it's not happening right now. Now that could change. But it's not on the schedule. Al Heyman hasn't been involved in approving this fight. So where did it come from? It came from desperation. They have to put a schedule out because they've announced this Amazon Prime deal a long time back. And we've been waiting for the dates. And they're basically selling the customer base, the potential customer base, a box with bricks in it, passing it off as a computer right now. So, let's take Tank and Frank Martin off the schedule until it's official. It's not official. And now I'm going to inject my personal belief. I don't believe David Benavidez is going to fight the Russian at 175. I don't believe he's going to fight him. Because it's a very dangerous fight. It would go against the grain to how David has been matched in non-title fights. They would have had to have run out of all options. David Benavidez' first fight at 175 against Vodzik.
If you're calling out Benavidez, he's across the street. You could have been able to, when you had Canelo, why wasn't...
Because the PBC don't want to work with anyone. And now they're fucked. Yeah? So you get to a situation where if I reached out to Benavidez, what the PBC do is they go, we're only making that fight on a PBC.
Beats, always a pleasure to have you on. You already know what's going on with the PBC, so we don't have to surmise every nook and cranny about that. This conversation is centered around where did they go wrong? Where did problems begin? In your opinion, where did the problems begin for them?
When there was the opportunity, like when fighters were inactive, to put them on Top Rank or in the zone, they didn't do that. They just left them on the sideline and they became depreciating assets. Let me just say that. That was a disastrous business model. Boxers have to use their mental energy wisely. If you spend a significant period of your career chasing Canelo, who is already Hall of Fame material, already a franchise, already has a support system in terms of media, fan base, networks. Damn, when he got done for Clint Brutal, he had doctors in there, lawyers, and all of the above. And when I look at David Benavidez and how the PBC and himself have managed his career, because I say himself because a lot of people are Al Heyman. No. David and his dad are just as complicit, more complicit, because it's David's career, and as for Jose Sr., it's his son's career. Al Heyman ain't related to them in blood. Let's take it from the last Canelo deal with the PBC, the free fight deal. We're getting to hear that Benavidez wasn't on the list. They were talking about Charlo. Errol Spence was considered as well before, pound for pound, Omaha Badman put the beating on him. Then obviously Crawford got mentioned, but we're finding out Benavidez was only considered in a potential amendment. You and your dad are banging on about this fight. Well, Al Heyman doesn't care if you get the fight or not. He just wants to get Canelo over there and maximize as much as he can financially out of the deal. He doesn't care about David Benavidez. And when you hear Eddie saying the PBC are fucked, they don't work with nobody, and let me put this in front of what I'm going to say. The other side of the spin is, does Canelo really want to fight Benavidez? Now, it's a different topic for another time that we can discuss. But here's the point. DAZN have never closed off the lines of communication from working with no one. They've worked with Top Rank. They're working with Frank Warren. They've never closed off the lines of communications to make fights. So if Benavidez wanted a shot at Canelo, withstanding the argument that Canelo don't want the fight, what would Al Heyman have needed to do? He would have had to have been willing to talk to Eddie Hearn and DAZN, as Canelo has a good working relationship with Eddie Hearn. And he didn't do that. Remember Floyd after one of Tank's fights saying, we're not working with nobody else. We'll just keep everything in-house. And then last year, they were forced into bed with DAZN for Tank's highest pay-per-view numbers with Ryan Garcia. So now they've got Canelo over here figuring, how do we crunch these numbers? What do we do? Let's hit them up for Jaime Munguia. Last time out, they got Ryan on a rehydration clause. And then when they won, they strutted around. Tank is the face of boxing. Do they honestly believe that DAZN are going to send more cannon fodder over there to build up their brand? They don't need the PBC to make a Canelo Munguia fight. They don't need the PBC. Why do you think they moved the Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia date? Because they knew there was a good chance they were going to be promoting that May the 4th date with Canelo. The PBC is not the UFC. This is boxing. With the UFC, they're not under threat from whatever MMA organizations are in Europe or Latin America or anywhere. They're not. But boxing, American boxing, well, you've got 2 Hall of Fame promoters in Britain to rival with heavyweight champions and contenders. You've got the Eastern Europeans now who are responsible, along with Britain as well and other nations, for knocking America off the championship rosters at heavyweight, cruiser, light heavy, and super middle. You go back to previous eras of great American boxing and they had champions in all their weight classes. Not now. Not now. Not now. But there's still PBC fanatics strutting around like they've got Sugar Ray Leonards and Haglers and Mike Tysons and Evander Holyfields and Roy Joneses flagship in the sport. And it's almost like they're oblivious that that era's not around now. It's not that they've fallen off boxing. It's you got to make adjustments. And they're just not making adjustments. They want things to be how they was without making the adjustments. When Eddie Hearn made Deontay Wilder the 12 million flat fee to fight AJ in London, oh, we want more. And Lou said, nah, the fight stays in America. We're going to get the casinos open, do it old school style. Yeah, what are you going to do? You're going to dye Donald Trump's hair and reconstruct his face to make him look younger. That era's gone. What was Lou DiBella talking about? The juice was in England. Now it's in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis, they're setting a template. I mean, the Joshua Ngannou promo, off the chain, it's crazy. And look, same applies to promotional outlets and networks as it does to boxers. You're only as good as your last fight. So while the Saudis might be the flavour now, in 1 year or in 5 years, things could change again. And we'll be talking about, oh, this is the way we've got to go. Who knows? If it wasn't for Top Rank, American boxing would have its face in the mud. And I hate saying that because I dislike Bob Arum.
But DAZN has been raising their subscription costs. They're going to Saudi Arabia to get more money. Why is it that PBC are the ones where you could go there in trouble financially? But no one says that about DAZN when you guys are...
Because they don't have a broadcaster that is paying them money to service their fighters.
Yeah, but DAZN is raising costs. And
no, DAZN has the biggest budget in boxing, and continuously make sure.
So they haven't raised their subscriptions at all?
Yeah, of course they have. Everybody's raised their subscriptions over the past couple of years. But your question is, why is PBC struggling and why are DAZN not? The answer is DAZN pay a lot of money to promoters for rights fees to service their fighters and keep them active. PBC do not have a broadcaster that pay rights fees for a consistent schedule.
Well, they are with Amazon, right?
No, they have a broadcaster where they've got a couple of pay-per-views that they have to take a risk on with no guarantees. They have no plan, they have no schedule, they have no regular content outside of pay-per-views that, quite frankly, aren't even really pay-per-views. And you cannot run a business, you cannot build a schedule, you cannot maintain and service your fighters if you do not have a broadcaster that is paying rights fees for regular Saturday night fight nights.
Yeah, but outside of maybe the Saudi fights, what has what big fights have DAZN put on?
Are you joking?
I mean, DAZN are putting up the costs. Like Eddie said, everyone's putting up their costs. Forget the subscription fees. How much pay-per-view do PBC put on? Every fight on this current schedule is pay-per-view. You're paying 5 times the amount of the subscription-based content of DAZN, whether you think it's rubbish or not. You're paying 5 times the amount in pay-per-views plus the subscription fee to Amazon Prime. This is just a dumb argument. And then, what big fights are DAZN putting on? Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk, sold out White Hart Lane Stadium, the rematch, Saudi Arabia, the Day of Reckoning, joint collabo Matchroom, and Queensbury. We've got Joshua Ngannou in over a week's time, actually on DAZN, on Sky, and I think TNT. And then we have Usyk versus Fury. That's also on DAZN. It's also on TNT. And I don't know if Sky are getting a piece. I don't know. Our promoters are working together over here. You can't say shit right now. When's Terence Crawford's next fight? When's the big announcement after that massive win against Spence last year? He's pound for pound #1 in the sport. And you haven't got a fight for him. And you want to question Eddie Hearn about what DAZN are putting on in their pricing. Women's boxing, Taylor versus Serrano. And I could go on. The guy asking the questions was trying to make a name for himself. I hope he was, because if that's the extent of his boxing knowledge, the boy's an idiot. You know, he's not taking into account how many offers Eddie has made, good offers, to PBC fighters to make fights. It was Tank who called out Conor Benn. Tank got a DM from Eddie Hearn, which he exposed online like a little kid. He thought he was getting a $25 million guarantee with upside. I mean, who thinks this? To fight a non-title fight against Conor Benn. It was $10 million with pay-per-view upside, which could have netted Tank $25 million, potentially. No, I don't want to fight, I don't want to fight. I'm glad somebody mentioned it, because I always mention, well, where's the counter offer? A lot of people have said, well, okay, you don't like the offer, you called for the fight, where's the counter offer from the PBC? Why isn't this guy asking the questions that need to be asked from those who need to answer them? Al Heyman doesn't talk. And you PBC fans think you're getting a good deal for someone who doesn't answer questions. Is the Tank Frank Martin fight happening? We've heard Calvin say it's not happening. How about Leonard Ellaby, Watson, or Lord Lucan himself? Why don't they come out and let us know what's happening? Is this true? We'll wait for more sources to develop, but they're saying that Al offered Frank Martin $200K for the supposed Gervonta Davis fight. And obviously, people are saying likely he would have got a better deal if he fought Shakur at top rank. It's not right to stop your fighter getting better opportunities on other platforms. It's not right to do that. The only thing I can say to that, if it is true, $200K is a guarantee. So if he can help sell the event, because that is his job as well. He's not the promoter, obviously. But, you know, if he can get more eyes to the fight, doing whatever he's got to do, he gets paid more. But you would have thought the guarantee would have been a bit more than that.